So about the same time that Caspio was being founded, I was actually involved in a big .com project. And just before the .com boom, a second one. So I was almost a billionaire twice. Keyword is almost. Interestingly enough, I spent many years looking for some type of application that could build databases in a platform, and lo and behold, I came across Caspio. But I think we're all here because we like Caspio as a platform, so I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about maybe a bit of a different angle, partially from the side of a small business owner, but also from a different angle that I call risk management. Being in finance, risk is a very important aspect of everything we do. So of course, I'm going to talk about professional services and why I chose PS, professional services and their role. And at the end, maybe a little bit how you can prepare if that's of specific interest to some of you that are here. So who am I? Well, I founded a hedge fund about 5 years ago, a small hedge fund, about 350 investors. We managed about 50 million. And I have a second role. I'm also CEO of a publicly traded company. And you'll see why I have two caps and why it's at the heart of everything that led me to both Caspio and professional services. Might sound impressive, hedge fund, publicly traded company. Yeah, I like to think it is. My 4 daughters tend to bring me right back down to the ground when I come home, but that's their job. At the end of the day, we're just another small business. 18 employees. Yes, network of 50 advisors, I mentioned before, and 350 investors. But you know, we don't have IT experts. We have 3 locations, no IT infrastructure. Again, we all know about Caspio. The two sides of the business. What's important to remember is that we start off as a hedge fund. And for those that know finance, even though we're in Canada, finance has the same fundamental rules, where if you're on the product side, you're not allowed to give advice. And if you're on the advice side, you're not really allowed to be involved in a product. Well, it just so happens that we're both. And the problem that we have is that because we're small and we have a direct relationship with our investors, they want advice. So we're in a particular situation where we have to both have a CRM to manage our clients, but we also have to have a compliance server. So essentially, the business demands that we have a direct relationship with our customer, and compliance demands that we never talk to our customer. So we have to find an application that finds the perfect mix between being completely integrated and completely separate at exactly the same time. Not easy. Remember, we're a small business. We don't have an IT team. We don't have an IT infrastructure. This is where professional services comes in for us. And the reason why we ended up with professional services is because we realized in that previous slide, we were saying that, you know, we have to manage, we have to coordinate, we have to be regulatory, we have to talk to our investors, which are our clients. But this is where I start talking about risk, because in developing applications or choosing an application, we're always looking at cost, we're looking at bottom line, we're looking at return on investment. Well, one thing I've learned in finance is that one of our biggest risks, which doesn't show up in the financials as a cost, is in fact risk. So the risk of making mistakes, the risk of dropping the ball, the risk of not being compliant is huge, because it's not just about losing a client. If it heads to a regulator and we have a complaint, we can lose our business. So the cost can be significant. And just this morning in one of the talks, we heard that roughly half of all Fortune 500 companies 10 years ago aren't around. Well, I'd argue that perhaps one of the biggest risks out there and the biggest costs is in fact what we're talking about today. So about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we started making mistakes. Very simply because we were using stupid tech. Excel spreadsheets, email, just dropping the ball. And so I shopped around. Lots of fantastic applications out there, but too big, too expensive. They just weren't adapted to our reality. Not just in finance, but I think it's probably a reality everywhere. So very quickly I realized that we had to build an application. Now remember, about 18, 20 years ago, I was doing that. We had about 20 developers and database folks, and it was just, I used to have lots of really nice hair. People think I lost my hair because of my 4 daughters. No, it was the development. And so, again, we see cost of planning, cost of coding, cost of deployment, the cost of maintenance. I see risk. And managing that risk, because not managing it is going to lead to something of much more significant cost. So I saw Caspio as a solution. But not just the platform. There are great consultancies out there. We've heard from a few today. I saw a bit of a big step between the platform and the consultants. And for a very simple reason. It's because the biggest risk factor is me. Because all the solutions that I have to find are for problems that I created. And so, not so easy. And I signed the agreement with Professional Services in September of 2017. 3-month project. We're just finishing now. It has nothing to do with Professional Services. It has everything to do with me. A month could go by just like that. I didn't have time. So if I were to sit down with a group of professionals that are consultants, how was I going to manage that risk of not being able to follow up with them? For the same reasons that I can't manage an internal team to do it. Professional services for a fixed price could hedge that risk for me. So sure, it took an extra year. I'm not happy about it, but that's life. But the price that I'm paying in the end is the same that was quoted to begin with. And it creates a really nice step between going to a consultancy or maybe even hiring people, because I can't do it on my own anyways, nor can my team. I like to call it the 3-tier risk management. This kind of looks like something from Caspio. It's not, it's me. But I find it really explains well what Professional Services combined with the Caspio Platform does. At first, of course, it's the platform. It's obvious, and I think we've all started off by creating that new account and going, holy crap, this is kind of cool. And I had that holy crap moment. And then planning. And all of you know how important planning is. Like, planning. The better you plan, the more you're ready, the better your application's going to be, the smarter it's going to be, the more powerful it's going to be. And that's when Professional Services started hedging my risk and participating with me. So I could just think about what I needed. I didn't have to worry about all the rest. Of course, building it and deploying it. And these 3 items put together helped me create something that at the surface looks very simple, but in reality doesn't really exist, especially not in Canadian finance. It's something that bridges the gap between a CRM, which is really just making sure that investors aren't investing in something they shouldn't. And by extension, I'm not getting thrown into jail for it or anyone I'm working with, which is the second one. And so this morning, Frank talked about guardrails. Well, guardrails are for what? Well, they're hedging the risk of flying off the road. My guardrails are a compliance server behind the CRM so that I don't fly off the compliance road, because that would be way too expensive. Would that be the case? How can you prepare? So plan. But let Professional Services do the heavy lifting. From experience, you've got a project manager, which is something we rarely have in smaller organizations, a real project manager. And of course, there's all the tech team in behind. But not to mention the fact that it just works to begin with, so that we, as the giver of a mandate, can think about exactly what we want and to never stop reviewing the plan. And to trust the professional service team to guide you, to listen. Listening doesn't come easy to folks like me. I tend to think I'm always right. Hence the reason why I wasn't a billionaire, I think. But it's important to listen and to share and to talk about problems, because they are there, they do listen. And from experience, they can take everything that I do well, protect me from everything I don't, and fill in the middle, not just with the platform, but with all of their experience. I don't think I could speak more highly of professional services for filling in that gap. Thank you.